Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of WrestleRotica, the podcast that combines wrestling with erotica. This week we have one story to share with you. The story is entitled Melina's Balcony Fantasy. Melina has always been more of an exhibitionist than her girlfriend Beth Phoenix. It is the morning of WrestleMania 24, when Melina decides to sneak out to her hotel room balcony and have some fun. Beth is reluctant, but finally gives in to her girlfriend's pleas. Without further ado, let's get to this week's stories. This story is entitled Melina's Balcony Fantasy, and it was written by MTL. The WWE Women's Champion, the Glamazon Beth Phoenix, is sound asleep in the queen-size bed of her hotel room. She turns over, and as she does, she reaches out with the right arm, expecting to feel her girlfriend laying next to her. However, her arm falls onto the empty mattress, causing Beth to open her eyes. When she does, she sees the side of her bed her girlfriend had fallen asleep on is now empty. Beth sits up, pulling the quilt up to cover her nakedness, even though it appears she is the only person in the room. The Glamazon looks around the room a few times, but there is no sign of her girlfriend. Slowly, Beth climbs out of the queen-size bed, picking up the white dressing gown she discarded earlier on in the night when she and her girlfriend went to bed. She puts it on, making sure to tie the belt tight. Once the dressing gown is on, she then goes over to the door, leading to the main room of the hotel room. As she reaches the door, she stops and looks in the opposite direction to where she is and sees the double doors leading out onto the balcony. Although she is sure she won't find her girlfriend out there at this time of night, Beth decides to make sure and slowly makes her way across the room to the double doors. Looking over at the bedside table clock just to see what time it is exactly, and as she does, she notices that it is 5 a.m. in the morning. Beth swallows hard, starting to wonder and worry about what could be troubling her girlfriend due to the fact that she doesn't normally get up this early. Neither of them do, especially not on such an important day as today is. Once Beth reaches the double doors and moves the voile curtains that is in her way and looks out, she sees her girlfriend standing directly in front of her with her hands on the balcony railing and her back to the women's champion. Beth quickly has to remind herself to breathe as the sight of her girlfriend, Melina Perez, takes her breath away. It has been 6 months since they first got together, but still, just the sight of her girl sent a jolt of desire running through her. A jolt that was even more powerful when her girl was naked, like she was now. The lighting was very dim, but Beth recognized the sight of Melina's perfect body anywhere. 6 months ago, Beth would have been shocked to see Melina naked, and out there in the open where someone might see her, but it didn't now. Her girl was fearless, and not only comfortable with her body, but proud of it.
Oh yeah!
So proud, in fact, Beth often found Melina walking around in skimpy underwear, or completely naked when they were alone together. At first, Beth had warned Melina about this behavior, but it hadn't taken the Glamazon long to give up this particular fight. Partly because her girl was always careful not to get caught, but mostly because Beth found it hard to complain about regularly seeing Melina in her underwear and without, which was even better.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Silently, Beth opens the door, just enough for her to slide out, before also silently shutting the door behind her, so she could surprise her girl. Treading softly, the Glamazon walks up behind her girlfriend, wrapping her arms around her waist, and presses her dressing gown-clad body into Melina's naked one in a perfect fit. Melina smiles as she feels the strong but gentle arms of Beth wrap themselves around her waist. "Good morning," Melina says in a soft tone of voice, only loud enough for Beth and herself to hear. "It's too early to be morning," Beth whispers back. Melina smiles an ear-to-ear smile. "You're right, and besides, the sun hasn't come up yet," she says, keeping her focus on the city that stretches as far as the eye can see. Neither of them says another word until finally Beth breaks the silence. "What's wrong?" This causes Melina to slowly turn around, which causes Beth to break her hold as she does so. Melina looks Beth in the eye and smiles a small smile. What makes you think that there is something wrong? Beth smirks back. You don't normally get up this early, unless there is something troubling you. Beth says, remembering how when the two had first got together as a couple, she found Melina awake in bed one morning and eventually got her to tell her why she was awake so early. And it was because she was worried how her friends and other coworkers would react to her telling them that she was with her. Melina smiles as she remembers the same incident that Beth is remembering. There is nothing troubling me today, Melina says, wanting to reassure her girlfriend. It's hard to believe, but despite the fact that they have been going out for 6 months, whenever Melina calls Beth her girlfriend, it still sends a shiver, or rather a tingle of pleasure, through her, just knowing that the mighty Glamazon is hers. Aww. Then again, it was hard for Melina to believe that they had been together for 6 months. Sometimes it felt like longer, in both good and bad ways, and other times it felt as though it hadn't been that long again, in both good and bad ways. If anybody had told her, when she had first met Beth, that within 6 months of meeting her, they would be a couple, she would have either laughed or called them crazy, or both. Beth had first appeared on Raw TV as Trish Stratus' new friend, who had an on-screen history with the then psycho Mickie James. However, an accident during a match with Victoria caused Beth to be sidelined and require surgery. Beth was then brought back in as a heel to help Melina in her feud with Candice Michelle. While the two were allies, on-screen Melina hoped that the two would become friends off-screen, and she thought, or assumed, that that was what Beth wanted as well, when after her first night back on Raw, Beth invited her out for a drink. She accepted, of course, and in order to show Beth that she wanted to be friends, she allowed her to pick the place, and much to her surprise, Beth picked a nightclub rather than a bar. However, Melina went along with her to the nightclub. Rather than be seen, Beth sat her down in the quietest spot she could find for them and brought her all of her drinks. And let her talk for hours about herself, something she loved to do, and still does if she is still honest with herself. The whole time, all Beth did was just listen intently, only ever pausing to quickly get rid of any guy who mustered up the courage to try and talk to either one of them. At the end of the night, Beth took her back to her hotel room, and just when she thought the night was over, Beth pulled her into her arms and kissed her. Looking back on it now, it was without a shadow of a doubt one of the most passionate kisses of her life. The next thing Melina knew, she was being led inside her hotel room, stripped naked, and fucked to multiple orgasms for hours and hours. Woo! This was the routine for a while, until Melina finally made them have the talk. And after that, the two officially became girlfriends. Since then, they have done their best to keep the relationship a secret from the outside world. However, most of their friends, co-workers, and superiors know the truth about the relationship. Some have congratulated them. Some have said nothing about it. Some have let them know they knew the truth with a knowing smile or a wink or even an innuendo. But so far, nobody has said or done anything to suggest that they shouldn't be together, and there has been no negative backlash from their lesbian relationship. So what are you doing out here? Beth asked, causing Melina to come out of her memories of how they got together. I was just waiting for the sun to come up. Melina says, turning to look back over her shoulder before walking over and sitting down in one of the two chairs on opposite sides of the table, which is also set out on the balcony. Why don't you join me? Although Beth is tempted to ask Melina to put some clothes on, just in case, she knows Melina won't, and the Glamazon can't deny she likes seeing Melina's body in all its glory. Beth just wishes sometimes Melina was a little more conservative at times like these, despite it still being dark and all. Beth does her best to push her concerns about being seen, or rather Melina being seen, the way she is, to the back of her mind, as she sits down in the chair near to her, and the two simply look out into the distance, and both wait for the sun to rise. It is a sight worth waiting for, and both enjoy the view. Although she does watch the sun, Beth can't help but still glances towards her girlfriend, continually looking her up and down, loving how rebellious she is in her own way, not caring if any early risers come out onto their balcony and see her the way she's comfortable in her own skin, so to speak. That was one of the many things that attracted her to Melina. "Isn't it beautiful?" Melina asked, her eyes focused on the sunrise, even though she knows and can feel Beth's eyes on her. "Yes, it certainly is," Beth says, smiling widely, as she watches Melina turn her head and look at her with a smile of her own. "I was talking about the sunrise," she says with a grin. Beth pauses for a moment, acting as though she had been caught doing something naughty. "So was I," Beth then says. Melina laughs. "Sure you were," Melina says, turning her attention to the view. Beth also looks out at the city, now bathing in the first rays of a new day's sun. "Ready for tonight?" Beth asks once again, turning her attention from the view to Melina. Melina smirks as she keeps her eyes on the view. "You mean our match against the Playboy cover girls who think they can wrestle?" She asks, knowing that Beth feels the same way she does about Maria and Ashley, and the fact that they're in a tag team match with them on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania 24.
Welcome to WrestleMania 24!
"Yeah, I'm ready," Melina says with a sigh, not wanting to spoil the mood or anything like that, and yet feeling the need to air her opinion on their match that night. "You know, this match shouldn't even be taking place," she says, turning her attention to Beth, who is looking at her with a smirk. "Yeah, I know," Beth says. "The Divas division hasn't had a decent match at WrestleMania since Mickie defeated Trish at WrestleMania 22. "Tell me about it! Last year I was defending the women's title against Ashley in a Lumberjill match. And this year, the title isn't even on the line. And it shouldn't be Maria or Ashley going after it. It should be me." Melina says, putting her name forward, just to see how Beth reacts to facing her in a match, now that they are together. Beth smiles, knowing what Melina is doing. "We're currently both heels and friends on screen," she says, having told Melina in the past that she wouldn't mind them facing off in a match for the title or whatever, due to the fact she knows it won't affect their personal lives. Melina smiles back. "Okay then, Victoria, or Mickie James, or someone in developmental, like Katie Lee Burchill, or Natalya Neidhart, one of those girls." While both Katie and Natalya are still a bit green, they can wrestle. They can put on a show and carry their own. Unlike our opponents tonight who can't wrestle. They can't put on a show unless it's a striptease. And sure as heck can't carry their own and have to be carried through a match. She says, doing her best to not get too vocal due to others still being asleep either side of the balcony. "I know how you feel, babe," Beth says, sharing her girl's sentiments wholeheartedly. "I'm sick of the fact that for the past 3 years, Playboy has somehow been involved in WrestleMania.
Cannot believe that I am going to be on the cover of Playboy!"
I mean, Christy Hemme was only involved in 21 because she was in Playboy. Ashley the same. And now, Maria? I mean, remember when it was rare for a WWE diva to be in Playboy? You mean when it actually meant something for a WWE diva to be in Playboy? Melina asks back. Beth nods her head. Melina slowly shakes her head. "I'm looking forward to working with you tonight, babe. I just wish we had some more talented opponents. Then again, even if we had good opponents, there is no way we could steal the show." Melina says, deciding to change the subject to, if not the main event, one of the real star attractions of tonight's show. "Not for matches like Money in the Bank, Undertaker vs. Edge, and Shawn Michaels vs. Ric Flair. Woo! Those matches are definitely going to steal the show. Beth says in agreement with Melina's statement. And Michaels versus Flair is no doubt going to be just as emotional, if not more so than last night at the Hall of Fame's induction ceremony.
Boy, ladies and gentlemen, what a memorable night it will be, the night before WrestleMania. Ric Flair going into the WWE Hall of Fame. The Nace deserves his own wing.
Tonight is going to be emotional, and so is tomorrow night, Melina says, thinking about what Triple H has planned for Ric Flair's last night on Raw, which everybody, apart from the man himself of course, knows about. Melina's thought slowly turned to something else, which causes her to smile. Good thing nobody saw you last night during Ric's induction. Beth looks at Melina and grins. Don't go there, Melina, she warns in a friendly tone of voice, knowing what her girl is getting at. Melina's smile widens as she knows she has hit a nerve. I wonder what the other girls backstage would say if they knew what a total softie the big tough Glamazon really. Melina's words are cut off by Beth's lips, attacking themselves to hers in an attempt to silence her girlfriend from saying anything else. Melina smiles, due to this being the exact reaction she was hoping for, and having teased the Glamazon intentionally due to the fact she knows how much she likes the people backstage to think that she really is like her character when she is not. At least, not all the time. After a while, Beth breaks the kiss and smiles at Melina, knowing that Melina meant to say what she said, simply because she knew how she would respond, and yet not minding at all, due to the fact that she is defiantly in the mood for them to continue what Melina started. Let's go back to bed, Beth says, smiling an ear-to-ear smile at her lover. Why? Melina asks with a cheeky grin on her face. You know why, Beth says. No, Melina says, trying to sound innocent.
She wants sex.
Why don't you tell me? Knowing what her girl wants, Beth smiles, leans in and whispers into Melina's ear. Let's go back to bed so I can fuck you. Even though she knew it was coming, a shiver of desire still floods Melina's body, tempting her to just let the Glamazon lead her back to her bedroom and have her way with her. However, I have a better idea. Melina whispers back, why don't you fuck me right here? Beth's smile slowly fades due to the fact that, unlike her girlfriend, Beth isn't much of an exhibitionist when it comes to her body or anything else. Melina can tell Beth is uncomfortable with this. However, she is determined to get what she wants. Please, Beth! I always wanted to have sex on a balcony, and this is perfect. Everyone's asleep in their rooms, so we won't be caught, and we can watch the sunrise as we make love. Won't that be nice, baby? Melina pleads. I don't know, Melina, Beth says hesitantly. People will be waking up soon, and you're kind of a screamer. But you know I can be quiet when I need to be, Melina protests, before a smile comes across her face. Well, quiet enough. The Glamazon frowns at her girlfriend. Come on, Beth! I'll be quiet, I swear! And if we see anyone, or even the slightest movement, we can dash inside before anyone sees us. Melina promises, before switching to her most seductive tone of voice. And if you do this for me, it'll mean I'll totally owe you a favor. A favor I'm sure you'll find a fun way to collect on. The two girlfriends stare at each other for a few minutes, but both are able to tell that once again Melina is getting her way, because Beth loves it when Melina owes her a favor of any kind, because normally all of the favors end up with one or both of them coming in multiple orgasms. Beth is still nervous, however. The thought that Melina will owe her a favor is too tempting, a proposition for her to turn down. All right, Melina, she says, sitting back down in her seat, having shot up and across the table to stop Melina by kissing her. Let's do it, Beth adds, slowly undoing the belt on her robe, doing her best to push her nervousness about being naked in public, as well as doing it in public, to the back of her mind. Melina watches as Beth disrobes herself, partly wishing she could have done that herself, and yet happy that Beth is willing to allow them to fulfill one of her greatest fantasies. Standing up, Melina walks around the table and gets down on her knees in front of her lover so that she is eye level with Beth's beautifully well-proportioned breast. Moving her head forward, Melina takes Beth's left nipple into her mouth and slowly and gently starts to suck on it, causing Beth to moan softly, despite herself, due to how much she loves having her breast sucked and licked. Melina smiles around Beth's left nipple as she continues to lick and suck it, intent on giving both breasts the worshipping they deserve. After all, this is the Glamazon, her Glamazon, and Melina's Glamazon deserves nothing but the best. As far as Melina is concerned, what Beth said on TV after she won the WWE Women's title from Candice Michelle back at No Mercy 2007 for the first time is the truth.
Glamazon, the perfect combination of beauty and strength.
She really is the ultimate combination of strength and beauty. In Melina's eyes, everything about the Glamazon is perfect, especially her breast and her Glamapussy, as Melina affectionately calls it. As she continues to suckle and lick the Glamazon's perfect breast, Melina thinks about the past couple of WWE divas to have posed in Playboy. And although she has stated publicly that she will never pose in Playboy herself due to the fact that she isn't interested in doing it, she can't understand why the WWE didn't approach Beth to be next to do Playboy, considering her gimmick as the Glamazon and everything. Melina is sure that had they asked Beth, and had Beth said yes, her issue of Playboy would have been the most successful issues ever sold. Even more successful than Sable's. And Chyna's, if not more. It would have at the very least put Christie's, Maria's, and Ashley's to shame. She herself would certainly have bought an issue, even though she has the real thing. Clearing her mind of these thoughts, and simply focusing on the task at hand, Melina removes the nipple from her mouth, and decides to give the actual breast some attention. She does so by licking around the nipple, and with each circle that she makes, she moves further outwards, kind of like the way you get a ripple effect when you drop a stone into a pond. Melina continues to do this until she reaches the base of the breast, where the breast meets the rest of Beth's perfectly toned and tanned body. However, Melina doesn't stop. She simply does what she has been doing, only now she starts going the other way, making her way back towards the center, until she once again reaches the nipple. When she reaches her destination, Melina once again takes her girlfriend's nipple back into her mouth and gives it a long, hard suck, causing Beth to moan out loudly. After moaning a little bit louder than she intended to, Beth looks down and sees her lover and the cause of her moan. Melina removes the nipple she had in her mouth and repositions herself so she is face to face, or rather, face to breast with Beth's right breast. Beth waits expecting Melina to take the nipple of her right breast into her mouth any second, but is shocked when what Melina does is starts at the base of the breast and starts working her way in towards the nipple, basically doing what she did to the left breast, only backwards. Not that Beth is complaining. Far from it. In fact, in order to show Melina that she approves, Beth raises her right hand and very gently places it on the back of Melina's head, and runs her fingers through the brunette's long dark hair, loving the feel of it in her fingers, as well as loving the feel of the Mexican descendant's tongue on her body. For a split second, Beth forgets everything as she feels Melina take her right nipple into her mouth, and sucks on it a lot harder than she did to her left nipple. So much so it causes her to moan even louder than before. She groans through gritted teeth, doing her best not to moan too loud for fear of somebody hearing them, coming out and finding them like this. Melina continues to work over Beth's breast, using the same routine on both either, starting at the base, but changing how she does the routine, either starting from the nipple and working her way down to the base of the breast, or starting from the base and working her way up to the nipple. Whether she starts with the nipple or finishes it with it, Melina always makes sure she sucks hard on the nipple, Beth is sure she is doing this on purpose, in an attempt to try and make her moan so loud it does get somebody's attention. What makes this worse is that Melina's plan is working, as with every hard suck on her breast, Beth is getting louder and louder with her moans. Suddenly, and without warning, Melina removes the nipple she has from her mouth and looks up at Beth, causing Beth to look down at Melina. "Ready to return the favor?" Melina asks with an ear-to-ear smile on her face. Beth smiles back in response before reaching down, grabbing Melina by the waist, and easily pulling her girl up and onto her lap, as if she was as light as a feather. A little jolt of desire runs through Melina's body at her girlfriend's display of strength, followed by a lightning bolt of desire as Beth's mouth clamped around her right nipple. Too horny to be gentle, Beth sucks down hard on that nipple, causing a soft moan to pass through Melina's gritted teeth. The sound like sweet music to the glamazon. Beth loves to hear Melina moan for her, and why she wishes those moans could be louder, the blonde has to admit, even Melina's soft moans sound incredibly sexy. Wanting to hear more of those sexy moans, Beth begins switching from one nipple to the other, each rough suck forcing another moan from those beautiful lips.
Ooh.
As Beth's hands began roaming her girlfriend's body. First, they simply moved from where they had been tightly holding Melina's waist, round to her glorious ass, which the glamazon greedily began to grope, squeeze, and pinch, forcing yet more soft moans out of her girl. Beth continues to roughly woman handle Melina's butt until she can tell her girl is desperate for more of her skillful touch, which she happily gives her. Beth's fingers moving over every inch of Melina's perfect body. As her hands roam this gorgeous flesh, Beth, like Melina before her, silently wishes her girlfriend would actually do Playboy. Beth respects Melina's decision not to, but she is also tired of all the fuss made over the bodies of all those stick figure wannabe divas. Melina had curves in all the right places and came off like a star, which is more than could be said for some of the recent divas who proposed. Finally, while the conservative part of Beth would be horrified with the idea of millions of people getting to see her girlfriend naked, another part of her would like to see those photos because she knew they would be smoking hot and put all others to shame, the same way the sales of Melina's Playboy issue would put all others to shame. Refocusing her mind on the here and now, Beth increased the power of her nipple sucking, which had become a little lackluster since she slipped off into a little dreamland where her girlfriend posed for Playboy, and began to take a break in between sucks to either twirl her tongue around the nipple or gently bite down on it. Both reactions had the desired effect of clearly driving Melina wild from the increase of her soft moaning. Beth seeing how many more moans she could squeeze out of her girlfriend by moving her hands up to play with Melina's tits while she sucks on them. Knowing how much her girl loves to have her big tits played with, Beth took her time, gently cupping both breasts at once, first at random, before using her hands to push the nipple she was working on deeper into her mouth. Not long after that, Beth began using her fingers to play with the nipple that wasn't in her mouth, expertly taking it in between her fingers and working it like the skilled lover she was. Neither girl was sure how long Beth spent on Melina's tits, but it seemed like an eternity to both of them. The glamazon joyously worshipping Melina's large, round boobs as they deserve to be, building her girlfriend up only to bring her back down, again as she constantly switched between soft and gentle to hard and rough and back again. Finally, the glamazon broke away from Melina's boobs, only to pull her girlfriend's lips to hers. The blonde capturing the brunette's mouth with her own and viciously attacking it. Inspired by the expert tit worshipping she had just received, Melina roughly kisses back, eagerly allowing Beth to push her tongue past her lips and into her mouth to intensify the burning passion between them. As hot and passionate as the kiss was, both divas are eager to move on, so soon the lip lock is broken, leaving both of them panting, gasping for breath, and staring into each other's eyes. "Ready for me to fuck you?" Beth asks breathlessly. Yes! Melina says, smiling. Fuck me! Fuck me with your tongue! Not needing to be told twice, Beth smiles, kisses Melina again briefly before she stands up, grabbing Melina by her waist and lifting her again. This time up and onto her feet, as the Glamazon quickly removes her dressing gown completely, and then takes Melina's hand in hers and walks back over to the balcony railing. Looking both right and left to make sure nobody is out on any of the other balconies next to theirs. She then looks down to make sure nobody is outside or in a position where they can see them from the balcony before she lets go of Melina's hand and turns around to face her. I want you to stand behind the rail with your hands on it, facing out towards the city, Beth tells her in an authoritative tone of voice. Then I want you to spread your legs and bend over for me. Make sure you stick that beautiful ass of yours out as far as possible. Melina looks at Beth in shock, having not expected her to move this fast, and now understanding why she checked both ends of the balcony as well as below them. Okay, Beth, Melina says, looking forward to what she is about to receive. Beth smiles back at Melina. Assume the position then, Beth says, still in the authoritative tone of voice, as she moves out of the way and watches as Melina walks up to the balcony rail, places her hands on it, spreads her legs, and bends over.
Okay, bend over!
Pushing her ass back and presenting it to the Glamazon. Once Melina is in the position she wanted her to be, Beth walks around to Melina's beautiful bubble butt. The Glamazon unable to stop herself, licking her lips, with desire before she looks both to her left and to her right one more time, just to make sure that nobody is watching them. Once she is happy that they are still alone out on the balcony, Beth gets down onto her knees, behind Melina, so she is face to face with her girl's glorious ass. Beth adores every part of Melina's body, but her ass was her favorite part. It was the perfect combination of round, tight, and soft. From the very first moment she had seen at the Glamazon, knew she had to have it, and she had.
Mission accomplished.
One of Beth's fondest memories of her first night Melina was sliding her strap-on into Melina's butthole, the brunette admitting she was an anal virgin, just as the Glamazon was pressing her cock against that soft ring of flesh. Oh, it had been wonderful to pop the anal cherry of such a beautiful woman with such a gorgeous ass. Ever since that magical moment, Beth had been finding all sorts of excuses to play with or even to just be near to this perfect butt, including eating Melina's pussy from behind as she was about to do.
Kids, it's time for dinner!
There wasn't much difference between eating pussy from behind or from the front, just that the pussy was upside down in this position, and that she was face to face with her lover's beautiful ass. A ass she became lost in for a few moments before looking up and seeing that Melina is looking back down at her. Look over the railing! Beth snaps, causing Melina's focus to immediately change from her to over the railing. If I catch you looking down at me again, I will stop immediately. Not just eating your pussy, but I will stop this whole thing, Beth says, still partly angry at Melina for looking down at her due to the fact part of the reason she had Melina assume this position was so that one of them could keep an eye out in case somebody either looked up and saw them, or in case somebody came out onto one of the balconies, either side of them. Sorry, Beth, Melina says, sounding sincere in her apology. Beth doesn't say anything. She simply returns her attention from Melina's face back down to her beautiful ass and the gorgeous holes that lay between those cheeks. Melina, meanwhile, wonders if Beth is still watching her, and although she is tempted to look down, she knows better than to give into that temptation, due to the fact she doesn't want what they are doing to stop, and even though she is sure Beth wouldn't stop what they were doing, she isn't 100% sure of it, and doesn't want to risk tempting fate. So Melina simply stays in the position Beth has told her to stay in, looking out at the view before her, waiting patiently to see what Beth does next. After God only knows how long, Melina feels Beth's tongue touch the top of her pussy, which almost makes her come right there due to the anticipation, the excitement, and the fear that maybe Beth was going to stop what they were doing. Somehow, though, Melina manages to hold off on coming as she feels the glamazon running her tongue from the top of her pussy all the way up to the bottom. Oh! Melina moans, unable to control herself. Melina! Beth snaps in a loud tongue. Sorry. Melina whispers back, knowing why Beth is upset with her. Beth looks up at Melina, really wishing that she had refused Melina's pleas for them to have sex on the balcony, wishing she hadn't given in to Melina's tempting offer, due to the fact that had she not given in, she knows right now the only thing she would be worrying about is making Melina have another orgasm, instead of having to worry about getting caught. To show Melina that she isn't really angry with her, but that she does want her to try and remember where she is, Beth starts to lick slowly up and down Melina's outer pussy lips, occasionally pressing into Melina's cunt, but never going all the way in, wanting to pleasure and torture Melina the same way she tortured her earlier. After a while, though, Beth decides she has tortured herself and Melina long enough, so she reaches up, spreads Melina's ass cheeks, and presses her tongue at the entrance to Melina's love hole, after waiting a few seconds to build up the anticipation for both of them. Beth forcefully thrust her tongue as deep into Melina's pussy as it could go. Beth smiling into Melina's cunt as she hears her girl let out a muffled choking sound as she obviously tries not to scream with joy. Only just getting started, Beth wraps her lips tightly around Melina's wet hole, removing her tongue and gently sucking on her girlfriend's pussy, squeezing another stifled sound out of her fellow WWE diva. Encouraged by this, Beth began switching between licking the inside of the soft love canal and sucking on the outside of it, giving Melina little shocks of pleasure, not enough to drive her over the edge, but rather to keep pushing her towards the edge a bit at a time. Melina, meanwhile, is in both heaven and hell.
Hail Satan! Hail Satan! Tonight, hail Satan!
Heaven because having the glamazon's tongue inside of her feels like being in heaven, and hell because of how slow Beth is going. Melina wants to verbally beg Beth to go faster with every lick and every suck of her pussy that she is getting. Not only because she wants Beth to go faster, but she needs her to. She needs and wants release after sucking on Beth's nipples and licking her breast, and now this. Melina can feel her first orgasm of the new day already building rapidly. Melina groans in frustration as she feels Beth suddenly remove her tongue from her pussy and let go of her ass cheeks, which for a split second makes her wonder why she did that, as well as wonder if maybe she moaned too loud and didn't even realize it, because she moved a part of her body, or maybe Beth heard something. However, just as quickly as those thoughts enter Melina's head, they leave her head as she feels Beth's soft lips pressing against the round globes of her butt cheeks in a long, drawn-out kiss. Before those lips begin traveling all over her ass, covering it in kisses. Melina grins to herself. She should have known Beth wouldn't be able to resist kissing her ass, as the glamazon has been practically obsessed with her butt ever since they got together. Not that Melina minds. In fact, Melina loves every perverted little thing Beth loves to do to her ass, including what she knew was coming next. Even though she knew it was coming, Melina almost forgot to stifle her moan when Beth spread her ass cheeks as wide as she could and gave her a long lick up and down her butt crack before pressing her tongue to her back door. After a cruel pause to build anticipation and frustration, Beth slammed her powerful glamazon tongue forwards, that tongue easily forcing Melina's asshole open and bullying its way into the brunette's bowels. Once upon a time, it wouldn't have been so easy, but 6 months of constant butt fucking had loosened up Melina's ass to the point where the Glamazon could slide her tongue into Melina's butt whenever she pleases. Once Beth had her tongue inside Melina's ass, the Glamazon began thrusting it in and out, fucking it the same way she had her pussy, stopping only so she could wrap her lips around Melina's butthole so she could suck it too. Clutching onto the railing tightly, Melina forces herself to be quiet as possible, as Beth began giving her a passionate and skilled rim job, the Glamazon licking and sucking her asshole with the same passion and greediness she had her pussy. Just as it was really starting to feel amazing, Beth switches back to Melina's pussy, driving Melina practically to orgasm before repeating the process again. The Glamazon switch in between kissing Melina's butt cheeks and eating at her pussy and asshole until Melina was on the verge of tears with her need to come. Finally, Beth took pity on her and dives back into Melina's pussy one final time, letting her tongue go crazy inside of her cunt, causing Melina to groan and moan through gritted teeth. Melina doing her best not to groan or moan too loud, even though what she really wants to do is scream at the top of her voice. Melina wants to let the whole world know how good she is feeling and who is making her feel this good.
I am the Glamazon.
However, she manages to keep her moans and groans under control as the Glamazon's tongue continues to touch one nerve ending after another inside of her until her assault on Melina's pussy is too much for her to take and she explodes screaming through gritted teeth. After she is done screaming, all Melina can do is moan as Beth continues to eat her. Beth loves the taste of Melina's cum and is doing her best to get as much of it as she can, like she always does. Normally, after she has come, Melina would have her hands buried in Beth's hair, trying to get her face as far into her pussy as she could, while at the same time either calling her all the dirty names under the sun, half of which would be in Spanish.
If you want to call somebody a bitch in Spanish, you would say puta,
and the other half in English, or getting her breath back after screaming a heck of a lot louder than she just did. In fact, many times Beth had managed to get Melina to give her a primal scream, which is the same type of scream as what she normally gives in the ring, or back when she was managing M&M. Once Beth is satisfied that she has completely cleaned out Melina's pussy, she slowly removes her face and licks her lips as she sits back and looks up at Melina, who has her face buried in her hands. Beth smiles, knowing she could so easily use the fact that Melina is not looking out into the distance like she was instructed to her advantage. But instead, she decides to be lenient. "Open your eyes, Mel," she says softly. Melina slowly opens her eyes and sees Beth looking up at her with an ear-to-ear smile on her face. Melina smiles back down at her. "Did you enjoy that?" Beth asks her, able to tell from the calm, relaxed, almost serene look on her face that Melina did enjoy what she just gave her.
Oh, yeah!
But wanting to hear her say it. "Yes, I did!" Melina says softly as she takes a deep breath and exhales. "My turn to return the favor now," Melina says with an ear-to-ear grin, looking forward to tasting not only the Glamazon's Glamma pussy, but also her Glamma cum. However, the expression that appears on Beth's face soon causes Melina to stop grinning as she immediately recognizes the look on Beth's face. "Hey, Beth!" Melina says once again, using her most seductive tone of voice. "We haven't been caught or seen yet. And besides, don't you want me to eat your pussy? Don't you want to feel my tongue inside of your cunt?
Yes!
Don't you want me to lick you until you come all over my face and mouth?
Yes!
And then have me suck on your big 12-inch strap-on before you fuck my pussy and my ass with it?"
Yes!
Beth looks at Melina, and her look of reluctance slowly turns to a look of disbelief. "I don't know how you do it, but you better not tell anyone else your secret," Beth says, smiling. "Do what?" Melina asks, a little confused, despite her smile back. "Manage to wrap me around your little finger," Beth says. Melina grins. "Oh, I think I know how." Molina says, "It's just a pity I can't bottle it and sell it. I would be a millionaire. I even know what I would call it. I'd call it Glamazon Control. And on the advert, I would tell people to buy my product and get their own Glamazon." "What if they wanted yours?" Beth asked with a grin. "Well, obviously, they can't have mine," Molina responds. "And why not?" Beth asks, already knowing the answer. "Because she is mine and belongs to me," Molina says. "And do you belong to her?" Beth then asks. Molina smiles a rather mischievous smile. "I don't know. Do I?" Molina asks. Beth smiles her own mischievous smile back. "Well, if you don't know, maybe she needs to remind you. After you've eaten her to orgasm," Beth says, and with that she stands up and looks at Molina. "And how exactly does she want me to eat her to orgasm?" Molina asks, looking at Beth with an ear-to-ear smile on her face at the future butt fucking and pussy fucking she can expect to receive from her Glamazon. Beth doesn't say a word. What she does do is goes over to the chair she was sitting in early, which now has her dressing gown on it, picks up the dressing gown, and then lays the gown on the ground where she was kneeling. Once the dressing gown is in place, Beth stands back up and looks to both her left and right, just to make sure that they are still alone and not being watched before she turns her attention to Molina, who is still standing in the same place she was before. "I want you to lay down on my dressing gown, facing the sky," Beth says, answering Molina's earlier question. Molina smiles. "What my Glamazon wants, my Glamazon gets." She says as she gets down onto her knees, and then lays down with her back on the dressing gown, looking up at the sky. Molina's view of the sky is soon blocked out, or rather replaced by a view of Beth's pussy, which she sees or rather watches slowly lower down until it stops, just over her mouth.
Yum 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 yum.
However, it is close enough for Molina to be able to smell Beth's scent. "Well, what are you waiting for?" Molina hears Beth ask her, not in an angry tone of voice, but rather simply stating a question. This causes Molina to smile as she gets to work, and sticks her tongue as far out as she can make it go, and runs it up and down Beth's outer lips, causing her to moan softly. The soft moaning is nice, but Molina wants to try and make Beth moan so loud that she can't control it, and so she starts to lick Beth's pussy with 1, 2, 3, 4 licks. Soon Molina is like a famished animal, which has just been put down a piece of food. And the food is Beth's pussy, which she hungrily laughs at. Beth smiles as she reaches out and holds up onto the railings of the balcony rail for support while Molina licks her cunt. The Glamazon loving the feel of having Molina's tongue worshipping her pussy, and much to her surprise and delight, it isn't long before Beth can feel her nectar begin to pour out of her and into Molina's welcoming mouth. Tasting Beth's juices causes Molina to go all out as she goes from gentle lapping to tongue fucking the Glamazon's Glama pussy, as she herself calls it, fucking it for all it is worth, if not for all she is worth, doing her best to squeeze in a few licks of Beth's pussy lips and clit in between, frantically thrusting her tongue in and out of the dripping wet love hole of the Glamazons. As she increases the power behind her thrust, Beth feels Molina wrap her lips tightly around her pussy, evidently desperately trying to prevent any of the juices from escaping her hungry mouth. Soon, she is greedily licking her cunt, while her tongue touches every part of Beth's Glama pussy. Beth is impressed at how much of herself Molina is throwing into this, causing her to start moaning and groaning, softly at first, but slowly picking up the volume, as well as causing her to start moving her body back and forward in response to Molina's assault. Molina's eyes shoot open as she hears the sound of the railings to the balcony rail moving. Molina immediately guesses why. It is because Beth is now using the railing for support, as she starts to really respond to what Molina is doing by going faster with her body, going back and forth above her. Beth continues to moan and groan, and those moans and groans continue to get louder and louder. Melina can even hear Beth start swearing under her breath, and in between the moans and the groans, which is music to her ears, because it tells her that her Glamazon is close to coming. Oh, that's it, Melina! Lick my pussy! Lick my pussy, you beautiful pussy girl! Beth says suddenly, which makes Melina smile even more. Lick my pussy, my beautiful pussy girl! Get your tongue inside me! Get your tongue as deep inside me as you can! Lick my pussy, my beautiful little Latina pussy girl! The Glamazon continues giving Melina words of encouragement, which have the desired effect, as Melina does her best to put even more intensity into her pussy licking, sucking, and fucking. Soon Beth stops calling Melina names, and even her swear words become moans and groans, as Melina continues to give Beth's pussy the best tongue fucking it's ever had. Beth is gritting her teeth, desperate to try and maintain control over her moans and groans. However, the more Melina fucks her with her mouth, the harder it is getting not to scream out in pleasure. Heck, Melina is doing such a good job. Beth might even scream so loud it could rival her primal scream.
There it is.
As Melina continues to lick her, Beth starts to move her upper body again, only this time up and down instead of back and forth, while again holding onto the railing, not just to help her with her movements, but also for support, due to the fact that very soon, Beth knows she is going to come harder than she has come in a long time. And despite how hard she is trying to keep herself quiet, the one thing Beth can't control is the sound of the railing as she holds onto it. All of a sudden, Melina stops tongue-fucking Beth and concentrates all her efforts on her clit going between licking it to tongue-fucking it, or at the very least, giving it little jabs with the tip of her tongue. However, she soon stops stabbing it with her tongue and just focuses on licking it. Although like earlier, when she was licking Beth's breast, Melina does it in a different way to normal. She does as though she is, painting a fence going up and then down, and diverting between the two. Oh, Melina! My beautiful pussy girl! I'm going to come! Beth says, through gritted teeth, as she moans still through gritted teeth, and comes at the same time. The force of Beth's orgasm, as well as the strength she has to use to stop herself from screaming, causes her body to shake as her orgasm hits her. However, Beth has enough presence of mind to feel Melina grab onto her thighs. Why she does this, Beth isn't sure, nor does she care, as her body continues to shake as she rides the waves of her first orgasm. Melina can tell due to the fact that Beth is shaking that the orgasm she just had was a powerful one, and although she didn't scream as loud as she had wanted her to, she knows she was close, but now, the only thing on her mind is getting this much delicious Glamacum into her mouth. Not wanting to miss any of the delicious juice which is gushing out of Beth's pussy and into Melina's mouth. The only problem is that there is so much of it that Melina can't swallow fast enough, and it starts running down her chin and escaping out of the sides of her mouth and onto the dressing gown. We're taking that dressing gown with us when we leave, Melina mentally tells herself as she continues to try and swallow as much of Beth's cream as she possibly can. Once Beth has finished coming, she focuses on cleaning her pussy completely of any and all remaining juice until she can't find any, and so she slowly let go of Beth's thighs and waits for Beth to make the next move. Once Beth has gotten control back over her body and stopped shaking, she slowly gets to her feet and stands next to Melina, who is still laying on the dressing gown, looking up at the Glamazon as she looks back down at her. You just stay right there, Beth tells her, once again using her authoritative tone of voice. Don't move a muscle until I get back. With that, Beth turns and heads back inside of the hotel room and goes straight over to her suitcase, opens it, and rifles through her stuff until she finds what she is looking for. Once she has it, she pulls it out of the suitcases, closes the suitcase back up, and then inspects the item more closely. Even though she has seen it and looked at it countless times before, Beth always likes looking at it before she uses it. And knowing that she is going to use it gives her a thrill, almost as great as when she's actually using it. After admiring the 12-inch strap-on, the Glamazon suddenly realizes she needs something to lubricate it with, and realizes that the tub of KY jelly she normally uses is still in the suitcase, as well as a replacement set of balls for her strap-on. Beth's strap-on was special. She could fill the replaceable balls with any liquid of her choosing, and the Glamazon chose her cum.
Oh, yeah!
The Glamazon feels there is something so primal about filling another woman with her cum, and it is something she loves to do to her girl. So she opens it again, and once again ruffles through her things until she finds the tub of KY jelly and a set of replacement balls which she pulls out. This time Beth leaves her suitcase open due to the fact she realizes that Melina is waiting for her out on the balcony, and the more time that passes, the more chance there is that somebody will come out and catch them. Meanwhile, back out on the balcony, Melina is still laying on the dressing gown, waiting excitedly for her Glamazon to return with a strap on, and remind her who she belongs to, as Beth puts it. All of a sudden, Melina sees Beth come back out onto the balcony with a tub of KY jelly and a set of fake balls in one hand, and a 12-inch strap-on dildo in the other. The same 12-inch strap-on dildo that took her anal cherry the very first night they were together. Aww. And now, whenever it is used, brings her nothing but orgasm after orgasm.
1, 2, 3!
Oh.
Melina turns her attention from the strap-on to Beth, who is now standing at Melina's feet and is staring back at her. Keeping her eyes locked with Melina's, Beth puts the KY jelly and fake balls onto the nearby chair, and then steps into the harness and pulls it around her waist. Beth closes her eyes momentarily, doing her best to suppress a small moan as she feels the small dildo inside the device slide into her own pussy. Once she has secured the strap on, Beth once again locks eyes with Melina, who is watching every move she made. Melina smiles an ear-to-ear smile as she watches her Glamazon start to stroke the strap-on. Even though they both know it's not real, Melina knows the only reason Beth is doing this is to turn her on. And it's working.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Melina continues to watch as Beth picks up the KY jelly and gets down onto her hands and knees in between Melina's legs, which she stretches out either side of Beth, giving her easy access, as well as a great view of her pussy. Beth smiles as she stares at her lover's hole before turning her attention to the KY jelly, which she puts on the ground, opens, and gets a small amount on her fingers, and begins to massage it onto the fake cock, which she is about to use to fuck Melina senseless. After a few more globs of jelly, Beth puts the lid back on the jelly, but leaves it there, just in case she needs it for the other hole of Melina's that she intends on filling with her cock. Time for me to remind you who you belong to, Beth says, looking directly at Melina with a smile. Ready when you are, Glamazon! Melina says, smiling back at her. Melina watches as Beth spits on 3 fingers of her right hand and reaches towards her pussy and gently traces her outer lips and then pushes a single digit inside. Melina moans softly as she feels the digit enter her. After a while, she feels a second digit slide into, join the first one, and then she feels a third. As if that wasn't enough, Beth gently curls her fingers inside of Melina's cunt and begins to move them in and out slowly, to begin with, however, getting faster with each thrust back inside. As Beth continues to finger fuck Melina's pussy, she is able to feel Melina's pussy get wetter and wetter in response to her actions. Finally satisfied that Melina's pussy is wet enough, Beth takes her fingers out of her and positions the strap on, ready to enter Melina's cunt. Once she is happy, Beth looks at Melina to make sure she is ready. Melina simply looks back with a smile on her face, and her eyes tell Beth everything she needs to know. With that, Beth begins to push her fake cock into Melina's pussy, causing Melina to moan already, through gritted teeth evidently in an attempt to stop the moan getting too loud. Relax, Molina thinks to herself as she feels the dildo start to enter her. Despite how often she had had this fake cock inside of her, she still always feels almost like a virgin about to be deflowered. Maybe it's because of the size or the girth or something. Whatever it is, Molina hopes it never stops happening because it always gives her a thrill imagining that this is her first time and Beth is her first. Beth stops suddenly, which Molina knows is her giving her a few minutes to relax before continuing to slide the dildo inside her. With each inch that slides inside of her, Molina feels as though she is getting closer and closer to her orgasm. And yet, when all 12 inches are inside of her, Molina doesn't come, even though, due to her having 12 inches of fake cock, she feels as though she is going to. Beth looks down at Molina, and their joined bodies, the fake cock now completely inside her. She then looks at Molina, and as the two lock eyes again, Beth starts to slowly and gently remove the dildo/cock from her, and once it is all the way out, she again slowly and gently pushes it back in. Beth keeps doing this until she gets into a rhythm. The Glamazon continuing to slowly fuck her girlfriend as the two lovers' eyes stay locked on one and another. Molina loves the feel of the strap-on inside of her, and while she appreciates Beth trying to help her pussy get used to the size and girth, etc., she does wish she would just fuck her as hard as she has fucked her pussy and ass in the past. After all, she is supposed to be reminding her who she belongs to. Suddenly breaking eye contact, Beth bends down and begins licking and sucking on the side of Molina's neck, making her moan a little bit louder than before. If you want me to go faster, Molina, Beth says in a whisper, you know what you have to do. Molina smiles, realizing now why Beth was being so slow and gentle, and deciding to do what her Glamazon wants, or rather say, what her Glamazon has been waiting to hear her say. Please fuck me! Molina says, or rather begs, in a voice barely above a whisper. Please fuck me, as hard as you can! Beth smiles. Wrap those pretty legs of yours around me first. Molina follows Beth's instructions, not just wrapping her legs around Beth, but also her arms as well, while she mentally and physically tries to prepare herself for the pussy fucking she is about to receive from the Glamazon.
Prepare for a pussy pounding.
Slowly, Molina feels the strap-on leave her pussy, until she can only feel the head inside of her. There is a few seconds gap, and then she feels the dildo being slammed back inside her with all of the Glamazon's might. Molina grits her teeth, but that doesn't stop her screaming through them. Luckily, her gritted teeth seem to take some of the volume out of the scream, as the Glamazon starts to fuck her pussy, making Molina dig her fingernails into Beth's back, as well as her arms and legs, grip on her as she hammers into her. The feeling of Molina's fingertips digging into her back, as well as the feeling of Molina's arms and legs gripping onto her tightly, has the effect Molina no doubt wants, as Beth pounds into her girl's pussy as hard as she can. Well, almost as hard as she can. Sure, she had used all her might for the first thrust, but since then, Beth had been only fucking Molina at what would be an impressive speed for any normal human being, but was nothing to the Glamazon. Beth was barely even breaking a sweat as she powerfully thrust into her girlfriend. And as much as she wants to show what she can really do, the women's champion feels like teasing her woman a little longer. To those unfamiliar with Beth's capabilities, might think that this is as hard as she could fuck. And considering the speed and roughness, no doubt a lot of women would be more than satisfied with this level of fucking. But over the past 6 months, Beth had spoiled Molina with the type of brutal pussy poundings that only someone powerful like the Glamazon could perform. And Beth was confident that her girl wouldn't settle for second best. Beth was right. Although Molina can tell Beth is fucking her hard, so wonderfully hard, she can tell it's not as hard as she can fuck her. Molina knows her Glamazon, knows what she's capable of, and she is definitely holding back. Why? Because she's worried Molina isn't ready for it? No, that can't be it. All the Glamazon would have to do is look into her eyes to tell her how desperately she needs this. So it can only be one thing. Beth wants her to beg some more.
You were made to worship and obey.
Melina doesn't have a problem with doing that if it means she gets what she wants. But first, she decides to try another tactic, challenging the Glamazon. Come on, Beth! Melina then says, knowing that the Glamazon has got more in her than this. I thought you were supposed to be showing me who I belong to. Melina adds, knowing that this will add fire to the fuel. Beth smiles, her words having the desired effect on her girl. So, you want me to fuck you harder, do you, Melina? Beth asks her, willing to give Melina what she wants, but not before she gets what she wants. Oh, yes, Beth! I want more. Melina pleads. You want to be owned by me, do you? Beth then asks. Yes! I want you to own me completely, Melina says. Then, consider yourself owned. Beth snaps, and with that she starts to really give Melina's pussy a pounding, fucking her with everything that she has, putting everything that is her into the fucking, wanting to show Melina who she belongs to. Melina's eyes glaze over as her powerful girlfriend finally gives her the type of fucking she had been craving from her, her pussy being practically torn to shreds by the brutal thrusting it is receiving. Although both women know that it'll be fine. Over the past 6 months, Melina's pussy has been on a steady diet of hard strap-on fucking. The mighty Glamazon slowly increasing the roughness of each fucking until she had stretched Melina out to take even the hardest of fuckings. And take them, Melina did eagerly. In fact, Melina found herself begging for Beth's cock. She had never begged for a cock before. But Beth had awoken a little slut inside her, and now Melina couldn't get enough of that strap-on cock. Even now, as Beth was giving her the hardest and most brutal pussy pounding she was capable of, each and every thrust just made Melina want more. Melina tries to tell Beth this, but she can no longer control her mouth, as it spews random words in Spanish that Melina knew her girlfriend couldn't understand. Not that it would have mattered. So she tries to tell her with her eyes to give her more of that cock. Whether she understood or not, Beth kept pounding into Melina, her eyes burning into the girl beneath her, letting her know who she belonged to, which was something that both of them knew without a shadow of a doubt. As the fucking continues, Beth can't help but smile as she pounds her girl. The Glamazon happy everything is working out so well. Beth knows she is slamming away as hard as she can, and the effects are very clear. Melina staring at her with a look of pure need for more of her cock. As Melina stares up at her with this look of pure need, her mouth can't stop babbling, although Melina isn't able to speak, at least not in English, as every word that falls from her lips is in Spanish, a sign to Beth that she is giving Melina what she wants and plows on. While Beth is fucking Melina with the strap on, she is also fucking herself due to the small dildo inside of her own pussy, which is attached to the strap on. With every thrust in and out of Melina causes a small dildo to thrust in and out of her own cunt, pushing Beth closer and closer to her third orgasm. As Beth pushes Melina closer and closer to hers. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Beth hears Melina call her name, and the next thing she knows or rather feels is Melina's body squeezing her like a vice as she comes. And then she feels Melina's body start to shake and shudder, a sign that Melina is in the throes of one of the most powerful orgasms of her life. Seeing her girl open her mouth to scream, Beth quickly places her mouth over Melina's, swallowing the other diva screams to the point of almost silencing them completely, as the powerful Glamazon continues plowing into her girlfriend, so close to an orgasm of her own, and so desperate to get it. Beth knows Melina can take it, and from the reaction of her body, she is almost sure Melina is taking it and loving it. Beth is right again, as Melina is taking it and loving it. Partly because she knows her Glamazon wants to come, and she desperately wants her Glamazon to come while fucking her. But partly because she knows what Beth is capable of doing to her in this state. And the women's champion doesn't disappoint, pounding Melina's pussy through 3 wonderful orgasms before the blonde finally comes herself. When Beth's body starts to shake, the Glamazon doesn't miss a beat, spending a few moments gently slowing down her thrust before burying the strap-on inside her girl and leaving it there as she squeezes the balls of her strap-on. Melina's eyes flutter as she feels liquid entering her pussy, filling her up and marking her insides as property of the Glamazon. Over the past 6 months, Melina has lost track of how much of Beth's cum had been pumped deep inside her, courtesy of her girlfriend's squirting strap-on. And even though she had found it a little weird at first, now Melina loved the feeling of being filled with Beth's cream, their cum mixing together inside her, in what was a pure sign that she belonged to the Glamazon. Once Melina has gotten over her orgasm, or rather when Beth thinks Melina has gotten over her orgasm, and that all of her cum is inside her girl, Beth slowly removes the strap-on from her pussy completely, causing Melina to whimper as the head is being removed. With the strap-on removed from Melina's pussy, Beth stood up so that she is towering over her girlfriend. Her dildo stuck out invitingly at the other diva. Smiling wickedly, Melina accepts the invitation, knowing her girlfriend well enough to know what she wants her to do and immediately doing it. Beth also smiles wickedly as her girlfriend does what she wants, Melina getting onto her knees in front of her, and their eyes locking before the brunette opens her mouth as wide as it can go and slowly swallows the cock. The head easily passing Melina's lips along with the first few inches before there is a pause, as the head of the dildo hits the back of Melina's throat. After that brief pause, which was more for anticipation than anything else, Melina moves her lips forward, the skilled cocksucker relaxing her throat to let the head of the shaft slide into her windpipe. Without missing a beat, Melina continues, taking inch after inch of fake cock until her lips reach the base, announcing she has taken all 12 inches of the strap-on dildo down her throat. No matter how many times she saw it, the sight of her girlfriend swallowing her entire 12-inch strap-on both impressed and aroused the Glamazon. Although Beth knew this was a skill Melina had picked up with her ex-boyfriends, the Glamazon was able to ignore the fact most of the time and convince herself that Melina only ever sucked cock to please her. It was a lie of convenience because it made Beth jealous to think of her girl with anyone other than her. But it was also easy to believe considering how Melina acted while giving her strap-on a blowjob. There had been a lot of sluts sucking on Beth's strap-on, but none of them had shown the total love and devotion to her cock that Melina did. To the other sluts, sucking Beth's strap-on was just a way to get it wet. To Melina, it was an art form. It was like Melina had found the perfect way to make her dildo wet while giving Beth the most pleasure possible from the act. Not that the dildo needed to be made wet, but that wasn't what this was all about. This was about taking a pleasurable break from the fucking to get both divas back into the mood. Well, that, and so that Beth could have the pleasure of watching Melina completely devote herself to her cock, sucking, slurping, and slobbering like a shameless whore while giving her beautiful girlfriend a chance to taste her delicious juices. Melina loves tasting herself on Beth's cock after her girlfriend is done fucking her. Whether it was her pussy or her ass, Melina didn't care. She loved the taste of both. She would have never sucked a cock straight from one of her holes like this for her boyfriend, but it felt as natural as breathing to submit to whatever the mighty Glamazon wanted, and Melina was only too happy to be Beth's little slut. Beth didn't always treat her like that, but the situation was beginning to bring out the slutty side of Melina's personality, if it hadn't been out already, which really showed from the sloppy wet blowjob she gave her Glamazon's thick fake bowl. Even when all the juice was gone, Melina didn't pause for a second in giving Beth's dildo the mouth-worshipping it deserved. In fact, Melina only devoted herself even more to the blowjob when she felt Beth's hand come to gently rest on top of her head, giving her the encouragement she needed to act even more like a shameless strap-on, cock-hungry whore. Suddenly, Beth's fingers tighten the grip onto Melina's hair, and the Glamazon effortlessly pulls Melina's mouth off of her cock. Before Melina had the chance to complain, Beth had already reached down, grabbed her girl, and lifted her up into her arms with ease, and had shoved her tongue down her throat. Quickly getting over her initial shock, Melina happily kisses back, massaging Beth's tongue with her own before gently sucking on it, giving the Glamazon's powerful tongue the same type of worshipping that she had given her cock. When she finally broke the kiss, Beth smiles at her girl and tells her simply, "Bend over the rail." Melina smiles back knowing what is coming, and eagerly doing what she is told, she turns around and bends over the railing, making sure to stick her ass out as far as she can so she's presenting it to her girlfriend. Beth watches Melina as she assumes the position, and as she does so, the Glamazon's eyes are immediately drawn to Melina's round ass, and which causes her to once again lick her lips at the thought of what she is about to do to her ass. Although she knows Melina is a hell of a bit looser than she was the first time she took her ass, Beth reaches down and picks up the tub of KY jelly, and is about to take off the lid when she stops and smiles, thinking of something she'd like to do before she uses the KY jelly to lubricate Melina's ass. So Beth puts the KY jelly back down and turns her attention back to Melina's ass. Melina stays on all fours, waiting for Beth to make her next move, which she does when Melina feels her ass cheeks being spread. Whether it is simply so that Beth can get a better look at her ass, or not, Melina isn't sure. However, her question is soon answered, as she feels something small and wet run across her asshole. Oh! Melina moans loudly before smiling, happy that Beth is once again using that part of her body to lube her ass up. From the very first rim job Beth gave her on the first night they were together, Melina had loved the feeling of Beth's tongue deep inside her ass. Until that first rim job, Melina never thought that something so gross could feel so good. But Melina had learned to crave the feeling of that tongue swirling around inside her rectum, cleaning out her back door and making it nice and wet for the fingers and strap-on, which would be inevitably invading her butt. Melina does her best to stay in position as she feels Beth close her lips around the tiny anal hole, and she gently increases the force behind her probing tongue until Melina can feel her rear entrance slowly open to allow the Glamazon's tongue inside. Beth smiles an ear-to-ear smile as she gets a taste of Melina's asshole. The yummy taste filling Beth with the desire to press on, which is exactly what she does. The Glamazon using her powerful tongue to push as deep into Melina's bowels as it could go. Once she had her tongue in all the way, Beth began thrusting her tongue in and out in a steady and powerful motion, butt-fucking Melina with her tongue. After giving Melina's butt a brief but firm tongue fucking, Beth reluctantly removes her tongue from Melina's asshole and begins pressing her lips all over Melina's rear, covering her girlfriend's butt in gentle kisses before returning to her asshole. Beth switches between her girlfriend's ass cheeks and asshole for a while, trying to worship every inch of Melina's gorgeous butt, making sure not to neglect the deliciously round gloves of flesh known as Melina's buttocks, while at the same time devoting the majority of her time to the tight little anal ring which the Glamazon plans on violating with her large strap-on. Before ending the rim job, Beth devotes some time to sucking and slurping on Melina's asshole, making sure to get it as wet as possible before she finally reaches for the KY jelly. Opening the KY jelly, Beth dips one finger into the lubricant, twirling it around inside before putting the rest of the KY down and spreading Melina's butt cheeks as wide as possible with her free hand. Once those ass cheeks were spread nice and wide, Beth presses her lubricant-covered digit against Melina's back door, rubbing the lubricant on her tiny hole before applying pressure and slowly pushing it inside her, smiling to herself as she hears Melina's moan in pleasure at the intruder. Beth pushes her finger into Melina's butt until she's up to the knuckle, which means her whole finger has been engulfed by Melina's asshole, which is just as much of a turn-on to Beth as anything else they have done so far. After giving her time to adjust, Melina feels Beth start to slowly finger fuck her asshole. Gently, but just like with the dildo in her pussy earlier. With each thrust, she slowly adds more speed until she stops completely, but only long enough for her to add a second finger, which also has lubrication on it. Melina can feel it. With the second finger inserted into Melina's rectum, it isn't long before Beth has established a slow but steady pace, moving her fingers in and out of Melina's ass, occasionally twirling her finger around inside her girl's back passage, skillfully opening it up for the cock she will soon be shoving up there. As Beth prepared Melina's ass for a hard fucking, the Glamazon uses her free hand to remove the empty fake balls of her strap-on, toss the empty pair back into the open balcony door, and replace them with the fresh pair she left on the table. Having done this countless times, Beth is able not to even slow down her finger fucking on Melina's ass, gently preparing it for what is to come until she knows her girlfriend is desperate for a butt fucking from something bigger than her fingers. At which point the Glamazon finally shows some mercy to her girl. Do you like that, Melina? Beth whispers into Melina's ears. Do you like my fingers sliding in and out of your ass? Does it feel good? Do you want more? Do you want my cock in your ass instead of my fingers?
Woo, woo, woo! You know it!
Do you want me to stick my cock in your ass and fuck it? Do you want me to fuck your ass with my cock the same way I am fucking it with my fingers? Oh God, yes! Fuck me, Beth! Fuck my ass! Stick your big fat cock in my ass and fuck it! Melina moans quietly in response. This ass play has got her turned on something fierce, and Melina is willing to do anything to get what she needs and wants, which is Beth fucking her ass with her fake cock. However, Beth seems content to just keep finger fucking her with her two fingers, even though the lubricant is no longer on either finger. Then again, maybe Beth isn't content to keep finger fucking her. Maybe Beth is waiting for something. Melina decides to test this theory. Please, Beth! I'm begging you! Please fuck my ass! Please shove your big cock on my ass and fuck it hard! Melina begs. After a moment or two of silent finger fucking, Beth finally says, Okay, Melina. And with that, Melina feels the fingers removed and replaced by Beth's fake cock, that hard shaft being pressed against the entrance to Melina's asshole. Slowly, Beth begins pressing forward, gently as she can, hungrily watching as Melina's tight little anal ring slowly stretches around her large bowl, gradually widening until the brunette's butthole closes around the vulva's head. Despite the desire to ram the rest of the dildo into Melina's ass in one massive thrust, Beth controls herself and keeps pushing more of the dildo further into that tight back passage, watching it as it slowly disappears up her girlfriend's butt. Melina loves the feel of the dildo entering her ass, inch by excruciatingly slow inch, until she can tell she has the whole 12 inches inside of her butt, due to the fact she can feel Beth's skin touching hers. Who do you belong to, Melina? She hears Beth say, just loud enough for them to hear. You. Melina says, knowing what is coming next. Not good enough, Melina. Tell me again. Who do you belong to? Beth asks. Melina smiles an ear-to-ear smile, knowing what Beth wants her to say. I belong to you! The Glamazon Beth Phoenix! Melina says proudly. You're damn right you do! Beth says in response. And now, I'm going to prove it. With that, Melina feels Beth take a firm grip of her hips, and slowly pulls the strap-on out almost all the way. And before Melina has a chance to think, or even prepare herself, she feels Beth slam the dildo back inside her with all her might. Melina's eyes roll in the back of her head at that first wonderful thrust into her butt. She had to bite down hard on her bottom lip to keep from crying out as she received a second thrust into her butt, and then a third thrust into her butt, and then a fourth thrust into her butt, and so on, and so on. The mighty Glamazon easily establishing a firm and steady ass-fucking pace. As wonderful as the firm and steady ass-fucking was, Melina was greedy. She had always been greedy, especially when it came to such wonderful pleasure. And over the past 6 months, Beth had spoiled Melina with amazing ass-fucking after amazing ass-fucking. Melina knew just what type of brutal butt-pounding her girlfriend was capable of, and after only the first few thrusts, the greedy Latina was craving a brutal butt-pounding. Oh yes! Fuck me! Fuck my ass! It feels so good! It feels so fucking good! Fuck my ass, Beth! Fuck it hard! Fuck it harder, Beth! Fuck my ass as hard as you can! Pound my asshole! Tear it up! Fucking tear my ass up! Melina tells her. You want me to fuck your ass harder? Beth asked. Yes! Please, Beth! I need it! Fuck my ass harder! Fuck my ass harder, Beth! Fuck it! As hard as you can! Melina now begs. Beth smiles down at Melina, confident that she now knows who she belongs to, and after slowly pulling the dildo almost completely out of her asshole, the Glamazon once again slams her strap-on back into Melina's butthole, this time using every ounce of strength she possesses to bury every single inch inside her girlfriend's bowels. Without a moment of hesitation, Beth began tearing into Melina's asshole with all her might, pounding her girl's pooper as hard as she could, the sound of her hips smacking off Melina's butt cheeks, echoing from the balcony. Not that the Glamazon cared. Despite her previous concerns about being caught, Beth no longer cared. The rest of the world didn't matter. All that mattered was the dildo on the inside of her toy, which she was impelling herself on, the huge monster cock strap between her thighs, those full round butt cheeks, and the once tiny anal hole in between those cheeks, which was stretching obscenely around her fake shaft as it hammers in and out. In truth, there was one more thing that mattered to Beth, and that was simply Melina's safety. Because even in her total lust for Melina's ass, the Glamazon did not allow herself to forget where they were. As long as they stayed as they were, they would be fine. But Beth was mindful that the only thing between them and an extremely long drop was a waist-height barrier, which her girl was now leaning on. Luckily for them, both the Glamazon's powerful hands have a vice-like grip on Melina's hips, keeping that gorgeous ass in place, while Beth lovingly abused it to the delight of both divas. So Melina wasn't going anywhere. Reassured in their safety, Beth could relax and enjoy fucking Melina's sweet ass. As Beth continues to pound into Melina's pooper like there is no tomorrow, the Glamazon smiles wickedly to herself, absolutely loving the moans and cries coming from Melina on every thrust out and back into her ass.
Oh.
Her girlfriend clearly loving the butt fucking as much as she is, if not more. All of a sudden, Melina turns her head and looks back at Beth, who looks back at Melina, both with a smile on their faces. See, Melina's smile causes Beth to try and increase her thrust as best as she can, but she can't, due to the fact she's already pounding Melina's ass with a ferocious speed, which even she didn't know she had. Beth didn't need to worry about not being able to fuck Melina's ass any harder than she already was, as the butt pounding she was giving her girlfriend was so hard it would put most porn stars to shame. It was so hard, in fact, that if anyone had seen the two divas on the balcony, they would have probably assumed that Melina had done or said something wrong, and now the Glamazon was punishing her for it by destroying her asshole. Melina knew better, though. She knew Beth wasn't trying to destroy her asshole. What her girlfriend was doing was out of nothing but love, and Melina loved her for it, just as she loved the feeling of what Beth was doing to her. It didn't feel like her asshole was being destroyed. Stretching to breaking point and brutally misused, yes, but in a way which felt so good. The violent level of anal abuse was giving Melina nothing but pleasure. The horny Latina whimpering loudly as her girlfriend's strap-on slams deep into her shit pipe. Every movement of the monster cock through her back passage, like the purest of heaven to the curvy diva. As the brutal butt pounding continues, Melina continues to whimper beneath Beth. As she turns her head back around, closes her eyes, and simply enjoys the fucking she is getting from her Glamazon. To the untrained eye, it may look like Beth was dominating Melina completely, but the Glamazon was just as much hers as she was the Glamazon's. In fact, if anything, Melina was in control of their relationship most of the time. The crafty Latina, easily manipulating her girlfriend into doing whatever she wanted. The first night Melina had been taken by surprise. Overwhelmed, and the Glamazon had dominated her completely. That night Melina couldn't have stopped the Glamazon from doing anything. But now, all Melina had to say was it hurt too much, and she knew her loving girlfriend would stop. But that was the last thing Melina wanted. What Melina wanted was for Beth to abuse her asshole like only the Glamazon could. Pound her hot pooper until she came. And that was exactly what Melina was getting. And it felt so good. As the anal pleasure becomes almost too much to bear, Melina began thrusting herself back against her girlfriend, impelling her pooper on the mighty weapon of the Glamazon, timing her thrust perfectly with Bess so that the ass fucking became even more violent. Although Melina thought of it, it's becoming more passionate. Two lovers becoming completely lost in the perverted but incredibly enjoyable act of anal sex. Becoming lost in the butt fucking, Melina began to care less and less about being quiet. In fact, the horny Latina found herself imagining all her co-workers and the room surrounding them and all the other guests at the hotel being awoken by the sound of her girlfriend taking her ass. All of them coming out to their balconies and seeing the mighty Glamazon joyously sodomizing her tag team partner. In Melina's mind, they would all be shocked and surprised at first, but eventually they would be jealous. The men, of course, jealous they weren't the ones fucking Melina, while the women were jealous Melina was being fucked better than they had ever been. Knowing the WWE divas, probably more than a few of them, would also be jealous they weren't fucking Melina, but that just made Melina's fantasy all the better. Of course, having sex out on this balcony was fulfilling Melina's fantasy, as she had always wanted to have sex in public, but the kinky Latina had two versions of this fantasy. One in which she was caught, and one in which she was not. And in her nearly delirious state of pleasure, Melina honestly didn't care which of these two versions of her balcony was fulfilled. All Melina cared about right now is coming. And with her eyes tightly closed, that is exactly what she was concentrating on. Whether she had been discovered or not would be a fun surprise for her once she had come. Not that she would have to wait long, if her girlfriend's savage shitter slamming thrust had anything to say about it. Fuck me, Beth! Fuck me! 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 Melina starts to say, over and over and over again, sometimes saying it in English, and then saying it again in Spanish, while at the same time, shamelessly, throwing herself back against Beth's thrust. If you want it, Melina, you got it, Beth says. I need it, Beth! Melina says back, I need it more than anything, and I can only get it from you. I love you, Melina. Beth says, having never heard Melina say what she just said before, and yet loving the fact that she had just said it, because even though they both know already who owns her in a way, Melina had just confirmed it herself, as Beth continues to pound and plow the dildo in and out of Melina's ass like a piston in a machine. I love you too, Beth! I love you so much! I love everything about you, baby! Especially what you do to me! I love what you're doing to me! Melina says, her body beginning to shake. Oh my god! I'm going to! Oh, Beth! Oh, baby! I'm going to come! I'm going to! Suddenly, Melina lets out a primal scream, as once again, her body begins to shake, much more violent than before, almost as though she has been possessed by some kind of demon. Seconds after Beth's scream, Beth has to grit her teeth to stop letting out a scream of her own, as they both explode almost simultaneously. Despite the fact that her fourth orgasm has just hit her, Beth somehow manages to not miss a stroke, continuing to fuck Melina's ass. The Glamazon pounding that perfect posterior through her orgasm, and in doing so, making Melina go multi-orgasmic. When the Glamazon was wielding her weapon of ass destruction, Melina never failed to come in multiples, and this was no exception. The powerful blonde butt-fucking her brunette girlfriend to orgasm after orgasm. Though, through this record-breaking level of anal abuse, Beth was able to achieve multiple orgasms herself. A rarity when she was just using her strap-on, but a welcome surprise. As she hit her third orgasm, Beth suddenly remembers her strap-on dildo's special feature, and smiling to herself, reaches down and squeezes on the fake balls, her cum squirting out and deep into Melina's bowels. Burying her dildo as deep as it can go, the Glamazon presses herself against Melina's beautiful butt cheeks, happy in the knowledge that her cum was being fired deep into Melina's ass on every squeeze of those balls. Her cum decorating Melina's rectum and marking the inside of her butt as something that belonged to the Glamazon. Beth had made Melina verbally admit that she belonged to the Glamazon earlier. Now, Beth was showing Melina this was a fact by marking her asshole and claiming it as hers, just as Beth had done their first night together. The Glamazon filling her prey with her cum like a wild animal, marking its territory. As Melina's ass filled with her cum, Beth suddenly realizes she hadn't checked to see if anyone was around for a while, and after that primal scream, that should have been the first thing she should have done. Frantically looking around, the Glamazon is relieved to see no one, and is just about to turn her complete attention back to her girlfriend when she hears the faint sound of a door sliding open. Not even taking a moment to remove her dildo from Melina's ass, Beth effortlessly lifts her girlfriend up by her hips and quickly carries her girlfriend to the open balcony door. Rushing her inside as out of the corner of her eye, she sees someone walking out to the balcony next to theirs. Unaware that they were almost discovered, Melina cries out in surprise and enjoyment as she is lifted upwards so that she is literally impaled on Beth's strap-on, that huge toy going even deeper up her ass. As Melina is lifted, the fake ball somehow gets trapped in between them, and the last of Beth's cum is squirted upwards into Melina's butt. The Latina's eyes widening as she feels like she has been impaled on a fountain. Before the cum starts squirting out of her mouth, Melina finds herself gently placed face down on the main table. The well-fucked Latina turning her head to look back at her girlfriend, expecting to see Beth smiling back at her. Instead, she is greeted by the sight of an angry-looking Glamazon. "You promised you'd stay quiet," Beth says coldly. "And because you couldn't keep your promise, we almost got caught." I'm sorry, Beth." Melina stutters, generally concerned for a few moments before she sees the smile on her girlfriend's face. "That's okay, Melina." Beth says happily. "I'm just going to have to punish you. That's all." How are you going to do that?" Melina asks, although she already knows the answer to the question. "Oh, the usual way," Beth says. With that, the Glamazon tightens her grip on Melina's hips again, and again stalling in and out of her girlfriend's aching asshole. Melina moaning in a mixture of painful soreness and pleasurable sensation as the butt fucking is restarted. Melina's moans slowly turn to whimpers as she realizes what she is in for. Beth's idea of punishment was a day of non-stop anal sex. Melina had been with many guys who claimed they could go all night long and into tomorrow, and most of them had only managed to go for about an hour. But the Glamazon seemed to possess an inhuman level of stamina, and had on more than one occasion actually succeeded in fucking Melina all day. On those occasions, there had been brief breaks to eat, and the sex had been broken up into various different sexual acts and position. But Melina had also gone through nearly an entire day, having her ass brutally fucked by the anal-loving Glamazon. This definitely wouldn't last all day. As much as Beth loved butt-fucking Melina, they both loved their jobs, and weren't about to jeopardize them by missing the biggest show of the year. So Beth would probably do what she had done before when punishing Melina before Raw or a house show. Spend hours bending Melina over every piece of furniture in their hotel until it was time to go, and then either continue bending Melina over for a few hours when they got back a long time later, or consider Melina punished. However, Beth had never started punishing Melina this early before, and it would be at least 6 hours before they would even have to think about getting to the arena. And in that time, the Glamazon could seriously punish Melina's ass. A few hours of non-stop pooper-pounding punishment always left Melina's bottom feeling incredibly sore. The curvaceous Latina forced to spend the rest of the day avoiding putting any weight on her butt, just sitting down or performing the basic of wrestling moves, a strain on her aching backside. Melina shudders as she thinks back to all those times she's had to perform her ring entrance with a freshly pounded butt, forcing herself to grin and smile the whole time her teeth gritted tightly together as she drops down onto her aching behind to slide into the ring. Of course, Melina had the power to stop these punishments, just as she has the power to stop the punishment she is receiving right now. But she didn't want to do that then, and she didn't want to do it now. The countless anal-induced orgasms she would receive would more than make up for any embarrassing feelings of uncomfortableness later on. And as much as those feelings were embarrassing, Melina also finds them thrilling. the kinky Latina loving the feeling of her rear aching as it reminds her of her strong lover and the multiple orgasms her lover easily squeezes out of her using such a kinky sex act. Besides, Melina thought to herself as she got herself comfortable to enjoy her second of many butt fuckings today. It wasn't like the WrestleMania match stood a chance of being good, even if Melina wasn't distracted. And since Beth loves butt fucking her so much, Melina can't think of a better reward for her Glamazon to thank her for fulfilling her balcony fantasy. The end. Thank you for listening to this week's stories. If you enjoyed this week's story, please be sure to like, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Visit us elsewhere online, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and as always, our official website, WrestleEroticaPod.com. Thank you and have a good week.